Hey everybody, I'm Brian Costello, 398 Walnut Street, Precinct 9. A few weeks ago, I notified the Select Board and the Town Manager that the town had violated the Town Manager Act when they appointed a school committee member to the form of government committee. It was acknowledged, and Mr. Mizikar did get back to me and say through Town Council that that was actually a violation of the Town Manager Act. I do want to also thank Mr. Mizikar because I did also say that there were other folks that were ineligible for certain committees, and he did send me a note explaining ex officio appointments and sent me the relevant law. So thank you for that. But I was correct on the primary reason I sent a note. I wanted to address that because first, I want to make it clear it's not about the people that were chosen. As a matter of fact, I think I voted for the school committee member that was actually picked on the committee. What it's about is really holding everybody accountable to what we do as a town, our own bylaws and our own laws. I think it's kind of amusing that, in picking a form of government committee, the form of government made a mistake and didn't understand what we actually have for some bylaws, but it's a mistake, right? It happens. I think that there are 4 ways we can go forward with this when I was thinking about how we approach solving the problem of a person that was chosen and that was ineligible. First we could kind of go back in time, right? We could say, well, let's just start over, let's create a new committee. I think that's unwise. I think it's kind of a little unethical, and I think it goes back in time. You kind of knew you were doing when we were setting up the committee. You picked how the committee was going to be set up. You put an ex officio member on a committee, and it is what it is, right? You knew what you were doing. You knew the type of people that were going to be on the committee. I think you can also look at everybody that's currently didn't get on the committee and say, well, we'll just do a vote for them. I don't have necessarily a huge problem with that, but I'd say that you are creating a new voting system when you already voted, right? You already created a system, you already voted, now you're kind of creating something else. You could throw the whole thing out and just vote on everybody new. Seems like kind of a waste of time to me. You already went through the process. Or you could go down the path and say, look, we voted on the people that were going to be on the committee. One was ineligible. There was a vote. The next person in line should get the committee membership. That is me, by the way. I want to be perfectly clear. And I do think I'm qualified for the position. I've been very active in town politics, especially recently. I think I've gotten residents very much involved in the process. And when we think about what the form of government committee is, we don't know the answer to this question. We have to get resident input. We have to get people that really understand what do they really want. What we know, and this was from conversations, I think, Beth, you remember having a conversation with Mr. Samant. Why am I blanking on
Samia.
Thanks, Mrs. Samia. Previously, and we brought that up. Maybe we should have a form of government committee, right? And the reason is we don't have necessarily a wildly engaged populace right now. And the question is, how do we get people more engaged in their town government? This is not going to be a committee about how do we remove the select board. It might be the best way that we govern this town. We just don't know the answers, and I think that's why I really want that transparency. I want the ability to kind of have sort of a transparent, prudent, and logical way to get this committee moving and getting people engaged to find out what they really is best for the town. I hope it's something that is similar to what we have, but I'm very open to figuring that out. I don't have a dog in the fight as far as a type of form of government we should have. I honestly have no clue. I think it will require a lot of research. I think it will require a lot of give and take with the residents, and I think I can make that happen. And finally, I just want to say that, this whole process isn't really that difficult. I don't blame anybody for not knowing that the Town Manager Act said that school committee members and finance committee members and select board members can't be on certain committees, right? Who's going to know that stuff? It's kind of minutia, right? But it's important to recognize that it happens. And, I think an engaged resident, such as myself, saw it and wanted to make you aware of it. Because I think it's important for us to all know that people make mistakes, we're all here to help each other and figure out what the best course of action is. So just thank you for that. Hope you have time to think about it and consider the people, and the way you're going to vote on this, I think, is very important. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Costello. Board members will be taking up the topic of what to do next with the form of government study under agenda item 13. Item number 13 is to review and act to appoint one member to the form of government study committee. As discussed at our last meeting, and as Mr. Costello pointed out earlier, one person appointed by this board to the form of government study committee is ineligible due to being an elected school committee member, which is prohibited under Section 5 of the Town Manager Act. I do apologize to the applicants and the broader community for this oversight. In preparing for tonight's board meeting, I instructed town staff to put this item on our agenda so we could decide how to proceed. I will first recognize that there is the option to amend the committee charge, for example, to include one member of the school committee. So before we discuss anything else, are there any board members who feel we should amend the current committee charge? Okay. So in anticipation of us needing to fill the vacancy, I asked the town manager to share a spreadsheet with the remaining applicants so board members could indicate their preference. This is a process that we've used whenever there are more applicants than openings. So I do want to note that the spreadsheet is an aid for meeting efficiency and to help us narrow candidates and guide discussion. It is not an official vote. The only decisions that count are those that are made here through our public discussion, motions, and formal votes. Board members may, of course, adjust their views before casting their official vote. My position is that the other 9 committee members were validly appointed and sworn in. The only issue is that one appointee was deemed ineligible, and I therefore consider the appropriate next step to be a new vote for this single seat. Mr. Costello asserted that he was next in line or received the next higher number of votes while he was tied for 10th place on the preliminary rankings worksheet. As I said, that document was a tool and carries no binding authority. And in fact, during our meeting, there was a formal motion made to appoint Mr. Costello, which did not pass. So 4 out of 5 board members provided their next choice for this vacancy through our spreadsheet process, which we would typically use for discussion. But before I share that, I want to open it up to others for discussion.
May I say, so my only concern with this is we did not use a form of one-for-one voting. It was not like a straight ballot where we voted, one vote equals one vote. We did a weighted ballot. So in my particular case, Ms. Fritz was my first vote, which meant that she got 10 points. And that was how we sort of had done that. But if we're making her ineligible to serve on this committee, then it sort of throws off all of the voting for that, because now the member that I had given my, strongest vote to is now no longer on the list. And so I have concern, that we have 9 other members who have now sworn in to serve on this committee, but I feel like at the very least we should recalculate if we're removing a member removing an applicant as out of the eligibility, that we should recalculate. I also have some concern. I think that when we had decided to use this method of voting, we moved forward with, trust in our colleagues that we were going to vote for 10 members out of the 20 applicants, and that was not done by all members, which throws off the calculation. It really, and I think that was sort of disingenuous to the community. So I have some concerns about how the voting was done, and if we're now removing somebody from eligibility and just moving forward with, sort of the next person on the list. I think it's unfair to all of the applicants to do it that way.
I think we're saying the same thing, but different ways. I think that we use this ranking, but again, the vote takes place here. So even if I voted for someone on that sheet and I get into the meeting and I might be like, oh, I've changed my mind, I want to vote for someone. So like we used it to sort of inform, you had 20 applicants for 10 seats. And so rather than sort of going one by one and 5 people and who wants this, it was sort of how do we organize it? How do we narrow it? Okay, here's sort of what that was. Let's talk about it. Does somebody have a different...
A man who works hard sweats hard.
Old Spice driver fights sweat, so coach thought I was slacking. So I trained with my Old Spice, and I became the best player ever. Sometimes a man must overcompense sweat.
Lightweight and adventure ready. The Arrow is Pact's lightest weight travel backpack yet. It's a carry-on
choice. If you have a different choice, make a motion for a different choice. So to me, it helps inform the process, but it is not the process. So it's not like we vote in a spreadsheet and that translates into a vote into a meeting. Anything can change in the meeting. So to me, the spreadsheets are kind of irrelevant other than just trying to help us from an efficiency perspective. How do we narrow this down in a fair and unbiased way? So I don't see any reason, as I said, the 9 other people were validly appointed and they have been sworn in. I don't see any reason why we would say to them, because one person was deemed ineligible, you're all ineligible and we have to start over.
Well, can I make a comment on that? Because the timing on the swearing in, I think, is important. I mean, Mr. Costello notified the board the day after. There was plenty of time. If he could have remedied the fact that a violation was brought to the board's attention, nobody should have been sworn in. Because, as Ms. Conlon said, which I agree with, there was a weighted vote. In this particular case, that spreadsheet 100% was used in the voting because of a weighted vote. That was how it was. It wasn't, you didn't just pick, here's 10 people, as she mentioned, it was a weighted vote. So by changing the rules after the fact, I had a lot of problems with that. And even to answer or address her question, there was never rules that said you had to vote for everybody. If you can vote for the people you feel are passionately about that are going to make the biggest impact to a committee, just like if you go to a voting booth, you don't have to vote for everybody on your ballot. You vote for those who you're passionate about or you feel are going to do the best job. So in this particular case, I 100% believe we're changing the way by having a separate appointment of 9 people when the first vote had a completely different set of rules around it. And just because they were sworn in, as I mentioned, it was notified the day after the vote. That could have got remedied before everybody else was sworn in.
Mr. Richards, these people were each individually chosen. They weren't chosen as a group or a pack. So I disagree that the other 9 people, that their appointment should be impacted because one person was ineligible. And you're right, we did use a process, again, to narrow the applicants, but that is not, there weren't rules around it. There wasn't a rule that you had to vote based on how that shook out. I mean, you of all people know, nothing is a vote until it's here in a public setting. And you voted for those 9 people as well.
No, I'm not saying they're ineligible. I'm just saying that it did throw off because of the weighting of the vote. You're totally minimizing the fact that, as Ms. Conlon stated, her number 1 vote getter was a stronger vote than everyone else. Her vote was diluted because that person was ineligible based off all the other candidates. Because of the process that was chosen, that was a process. And I've never seen a process where we come up here and we say, oh, how on earth would we have appointed, taking those 20 people in this meeting if the spreadsheet didn't mean anything? I don't understand that.
I didn't say it didn't mean anything. Again, it's a tool in the process, but it is not the final decision. It is not that we had everybody independently, rank their preferences to sort of, distill and narrow the list, there was no reason why that couldn't change. I mean, there are meetings when people have deliberation and then make a motion which could be different. So I disagree that because one person was deemed ineligible, that impacts the other 9 people who this board independently selected.
Well, that's not the process we use. I just vehemently disagree with that. I mean, it's just not accurate.
I think part of what I'm hearing is there are 23 points that would have gone elsewhere had we eliminated the ineligible person at the beginning. So I think what we have to determine is what's the remedy that we would like to take as a board so that we can evaluate each candidate in a way that we wouldn't have, right? I mean, it changes, taking one person out it changes the distribution. So what you said about recalculating, I think that's what you're trying to get at.
Yeah, I just think it's I think going into this, personally, I thought, that I had trust in my colleagues that we were going to each vote for 10 candidates. That was the instruction that we were given, was to vote for 10 candidates. And each vote, depending on how we rank them, have a certain weight that is carried with them. And when not all of us choose to move forward, and vote for 10 candidates, I think that is, it's sort of a disingenuous way to do this. I think it is unfair to the community that was chosen, because I think that that unfairly gives more weight to the 3 people that were voted for, as opposed to voting for 10 candidates as we were instructed to do. And I think that to remove the eligibility of one candidate that had, I don't have the spreadsheet in front of me, but I know they had multiple members of this board had voted for them. I think you said
23 points.
23 points, that it, to just move forward with, with this, the suggestion to go forward and say that the vote should go to the next person on the list is not fair. I don't think that the process was done honestly. Excuse me, there's a lot of conversation in the crowd. It's kind of distracting. This is not a public hearing. So I think it's unfair to the community, the way that it was done, that it was not sort of done honestly by all members of the board, I feel. And I feel like moving forward by just appointing the next person is not the correct way to do it. And I think that if anything, if we vote tonight on the 10 remaining members, that's one way to do it. But I think that, I don't know if we should go forward and recalculate the votes with the ineligible member removed from the list, which would give each member one more opportunity to vote.
Just hypothetically speaking, even if you were to do that, right, and say the list, it came out and it was Joe Smith is sort of next in line, it's still subject to a motion and a vote by this board. So I don't feel like we need to go through that convoluted. I guess maybe the question is, do we all agree that we have one vacant seat, so we need to vote for one member? I disagree that we should blow up the whole, the 9 other people that we appointed, because again, they weren't exclusively appointed because of this voting process. And everybody wants transparency. And so we try to, how do I put this? Not always deliberate like individuals. Like, in my opinion, we had 20 applicants, and I'm great with all 20 of them. And it's really uncomfortable because when we're voting, it's almost, I don't want to imply that one person is not as good as another. I mean, you could take any of the 20, and I think we'd all be great with it. So it's really, so part of this is just trying to be respectful of people and not, come up with reasons why this person but not that person. We did ask, as part of the process, each individual board member to vote for 10 people. Let's just be clear, Michelle, with what you're saying. 4 out of 5 board members voted for 10. Brian voted for 3. Greg, voted for 3. And it was to tilt the weighted outcome. And it wasn't in good faith, but it was your right to do that, whether we agree with it or we disagree with it. But, to your point, if you go to the next person in line, you could say, well, they had 10 points, but only 1 out of 5 board members voted for them. I think we're getting caught up on this ranking, which is not, and maybe we just need to rethink it going forward so we don't repeat this issue. The pre-meeting voting and ranking is not binding, period, hands down. So therefore, I don't think we revert to that to select the next person. I think that even if those, I come to the meeting and I'm like, this person got the most and this person got the least, someone might say like, this person didn't get any votes and I want them to be considered, and the board ultimately votes on that, and then that doesn't tie back to the pre-meeting rankings either. So I think we're just putting a little too much emphasis on that.
I got this wow skin from Olay Body Wash. It's new super serum with 5 powerful ingredients. 5 benefits in one. My skin goes from dull to luminous. For me, it's only Olay Super Serum Body Wash.
Which was supposed to be just a good faith tool to help us get organized around something that otherwise would kind of be,
It's cumbersome.
it would just be disorganized and lengthy. So my opinion is that we need to vote for 1 other member. How we do that, I'm open to. We can do it tonight. We can pend it to the next meeting. Are there any issues with pending it to the next meeting? Does the committee need to meet? I don't know when their next meeting is.
Okay. Yeah, we haven't scheduled, the committee has not scheduled a meeting yet.
The only thing is in the charge, I think we would just need to make it clear to the committee that we're expecting their deliverable and that their timer starts when they have their first meeting, not like several weeks ago.
I mean, I just have an argument about I don't deem this a vacancy. I think the term vacancy is incorrect in this case because the committee's never met. And I understand what you're saying about that there's a non-binding, say, pre-vote, but that's the way that this board has voted on all appointments. That same process has been followed for quite a while, at least all the appointments since I've been here. I know I've been here very long, but that's the method that's always been used. Filling out a spreadsheet ahead of time, you're coming here, and nobody's ever, to my knowledge, offered up alternate appointments during a meeting saying that that was just a suggestion. So I just don't believe that there really should be looked at as a vacancy. If anything, if you're not going to go to the next person from the previous vote, honestly, it should be revoted because you could make a different decision based off of.
There wasn't a vote. You're referring to a vote. There wasn't a prior vote. There's not another person to go to, Greg. I'm sorry, but there wasn't. I mean,
You're also replacing, you're trying to, if you go to the next person, that person got 10 points, whereas the person we're removing got 23. And I think that's the point
Right.
that Ms. Conlon is trying to make,
No, I agree with what she's
right?
trying to make.
So how do you fix that, I guess, is the question.
Well, you can't recalculate it because you could have made a different decision. Would pick, obviously, Ms. Conlon would pick somebody different, and then
Right.
all the other scoring would be different. Everything would have been.
And I think all 4 of the members who gave points to the person that's no longer eligible would assign those points elsewhere. So I just.
To the remaining
To the remaining
9.
9, yes.
These, yeah, I guess. that
I
makes
mean, I
sense.
don't really care if we call it a vacancy or what. It is, there's 10 seats, 10 positions. We appointed 9. I think those people were appointed fairly. And so there's still 1 position that needs to be appointed.
So take your points and put them someplace else, because otherwise, I mean, these make my head hurt when I have to think of this many people and all the different points.
Yeah, I
Like,
just don't think it was a good
can't-
system to begin with. I mean, I would argue that if this ever came up again, we should come up with a completely different way to do it, because
Yeah.
this isn't working.
Well,
I
it
mean,
has worked.
It has
It has worked when we all do it in good faith, but when it's not done in
You
good faith.
you keep saying good
it is
faith,
not.
Michelle, but that, nobody said you had to vote for all 10 people. It explicitly does not say you must vote.
But do you
for
think
10.
that's fair to the community? the
Yes,
way that
it's
you
fair.
chose to do it?
100% it's fair. You know why it's fair? Because the only way certain people are ever going to get on committees, if you have to look at picking them. I tried, never got appointed. There's a number of people in this community who have always said, I'll never get appointed because of who I am, what I believe in. The fairness thing to this community is to allow somebody who thinks differently than those sitting up here to sit on a committee. That's what's really going on here.
I think that the 9 that we selected have sworn into this office are all a very diverse group of people. And so to say that we're selecting people who only think a certain way is incredibly untrue. And I think the choice to go forward and only select 3 people when we were instructed to select 10 is unfair to the community. All 5 of us were duly elected by members of this community to make these decisions. So you are one of 5. And we go into this trusting each other with the process that we had discussed, and go into this trusting each other to do this fairly, and to throw the vote by only selecting 3 out of 10, I think is incredibly unfair to all members of the community.
It's not throwing the vote.
I don't serve a handful of people who have a loud voice. I serve every person that lives in this community.
Yeah, so do I.
And that means that I voted for 10 people, and I voted for a very diverse group of people. And the ones who were sworn in have very different perspectives and different, priorities and things that they want to see in this community. And I think that that is the only fair way to do this. So to throw a weighted vote by only using 3 of your votes it is not honest, and it is not transparent, and it is not fair to the community.
It's 100% fair, and
I disagree.
well, you can disagree, but the fact that you're saying that it's throwing, that I have nothing against anybody.
Why did you only choose 3 then?
Because
if you
I
were
wanted-
not trying to skew the vote.
I'm voting for the people who I know, number one, have never been able to serve on a committee.
That is
And-
not true.
Oh, that is true. And that those are the people who I felt were going to be a diverse voice on the committee that I was the most passionate about. And because I knew there was 4 other members of this committee who were going to vote for other people. So that's why I chose to vote for those people. And just like I said, when I go into the ballot box and I vote on everything, you don't have to vote for everybody. You can leave things blank if you're not passionate about somebody. So to say that you must vote is wrong. That's just not how it went.
Right, and I think that, if I could just interject, I think that works in the ballot box because it's 1-to-1, and I think what we're hanging up here is the fact that these were weighted. So we've got 23 points that got allocated to someone who's ineligible, so how do we move forward in a way that doesn't just throw those points away, I think is what we're trying to get at.
Yeah, the only way you can do it is go back and re-vote everybody. That's the only way you can do it.
I stand by what I said. First of all, Mr. Richards, you have no idea how I've ever voted. I went through and looked at the spreadsheet. You might like to sort of apply this groupthink to us, but I don't appreciate that. I don't have a record of not considering people who have different points of view. And I stand by what I said, that I think all 20 of the applicants are, I appreciate them coming forward, and I think they would all be excellent. But please don't pit us against each other just because we didn't pick someone that you have a preference for. There were people that I voted for that other people didn't vote for, okay? And I'm not going to get up here and accuse others of having intent behind that. I mean, I really think that sometimes if you look, you're making something out of this that does not exist. And I don't appreciate that. I'm going to go back to where I stood. I think that we have one open position. And I think we should vote based on the current applicants who should have that position. I do not agree with, I can't find any reasonable justification to go back and recalculate everything. So I would ask the board members to agree if we're going to vote for another person or not.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I just want to make a comment. There's a lot of passion in this room. And I just want to remind everyone who's watching and also us that there were 20 applicants who applied for this form of government study, which is going to be an extensive process. That's going to take 12 to 18 months of public engagement. So there's going to be a lot of community interaction. And each of the applicants, the ones who applied, the ones who are on the committee, and also the ones who are not, I hope and expect that they will continue to be involved with this process. And even ones who also did not apply, who may express interest in our form of government, that's what the committee is going to do, is going to collect the feedback from the community and make the recommendations that at the end of the process will be what the select board will then work through. But I think, you know, again, I feel and understand that there's a lot of passion in this room, but I think that we just need to remind ourselves that all of these people who applied and all of us are community members and want to see the best outcomes for this community. And for there to be, you know, us to be fighting over the last seat, I just feel, you know, just reminding ourselves that each person who applied, each person who watches our meetings, each of us on this board want what's best for our community. And I will say, for full transparency, when I received the new spreadsheet over the weekend, I looked at the old spreadsheet and I looked at the people that I voted for who may or may not have gotten appointed, and I went with my top choice of the remaining applicants. And I think that that's what we should do for this. Again, I know that there is a lot of passion, and this process is going to take a long time, but no voice is going to be turned away. The committee will meet in public settings. People will come to those meetings, and I hope that and expect that they will provide public comment. So those are just my thoughts on this.
So what do you want to do?
I would like to fill the vacancy.
Ryan Costello.
Yeah. I don't know, people who accuse me of breaking the law and being an entrenched bureaucrat are interesting considerations.
So you're gonna revote for the one seat?
We are not, it's not a public hearing. I apologize. I appreciate the engagement, but I have to follow the protocol of the meeting or I'll be accused of breaking that law as well. I will entertain a motion to review an act to appoint one member of the board. I think that we should take a vote to clarify the process, and then we can decide if we want to vote today or if we want to wait for our next meeting.
I think that given that the votes were not 1-to-1, when I looked at the voting spreadsheet, I also went back to the person, there was only of the people that I voted for and the top vote getter for me. And I was planning to support that person as my choice this evening. So I thought that that was consistent with, you know, how I had approached the voting spreadsheet from the outset. And so I do think because it's weighted, I think you create more issues if you revote the whole thing, because then there could be people who 2 weeks ago got appointed to a committee and they're really looking forward to it and they got sworn in and they're ready to go to work, and then all of a sudden the rug could be pulled out from under them. And I just think that that's a really unfortunate thing to do to someone who's put their name forward. Everybody put their name forward in good faith. We want people to apply for positions such as this and other positions. And if it's a circus, then people aren't going to want to apply for these types of things. This committee has really important work to do. And the members of the committee, while they are instrumental to the final recommendation, what they hear from the community and the feedback that they receive is what's going to guide and drive their work and their presentation to us at the end of the 12 to 18 months. And I think that getting the ball rolling and getting the committee off and onto their important work is foremost. So I would not recommend tabling this until next month. I think we should look at the 9 remaining candidates and choose one.
I'm sorry, I keep saying 10, but you're right, there's 9, right?
Is there 9?
Is it?
I don't know. This makes my head.
There were 20,
head hurt.
you took one out, we appointed 10, you're
9.
right, there's 9.
9. Yes.
And just to be very clear,
There's 10.
there's 10?
Yeah.
Wait a minute, we had 20 initially.
There's 11 total on the committee. You've appointed 10, there's 1 remaining.
Okay,
One was ineligible.
sorry, it's on the agenda, isn't it?
Yes.
1, 2, 3,
Review and act to appoint 10 members.
7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, yep. For anyone who thinks that any of this was predetermined, let me assure you.
Count the number. So just as a
we
point of
have
order,
not.
do we need to revote the other ones too?
No.
Okay,
No.
thank you.
All right, well, at this point, I think that the best way to do it is just to go around the table and each person can indicate who they would like to vote for, and we'll see if we have any consistency.
Brian Costello.
Deborah Delgado.
John Finn.
John Finn.
John Finn.
So we have 3 for John Finn, 1 for Brian Costello, and 1 for
Deborah Delgado.
Deborah Delgado, sorry. All right, make some motions.
I move that we appoint John Finn to the Form of Government Committee.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Who's aye? Michelle, Carlos?
Well, I'm gonna aye because in the past, it's like, I get on board with, if we're making an appointment to this committee.
Okay, so the
Not
motion
against it.
passes 4-1 to appoint John Finn to the Form of Government Study Committee.
You should call for nays and abstentions.
Pardon me?
I said you should call for nays and abstentions, just to be clear.
Okay.
We're doing a
By
roll call.
roll vote?
No, I've only heard you call for.
Oh, nay, I'm sorry.
Anybody opposed?
I just assumed, but is there a nay vote?
No.
1. Okay. Mr. Richards, would you like to make another motion? I mean, I think that,
You just
If
appointed
appointed,
somebody. How would I make?
okay. Any other discussion on this matter? Okay, that leaves us with correspondence. Item number 14 is an email dated September 10th from Sam Malouf, 57 Harriet Avenue, regarding stopping water fluoridation is a priority, so noted. Letter dated September 11th, 2025, from Shonda Green, Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Department of Telecommunications and Cable, regarding cable TV and license with Selco. This is generally an administrative issue, or notice, I should say, so noted. Email dated September 16th, 2025, from Brian Costello, 398 Walnut Street, regarding public comment. Mr. Costello was here this evening. And item number 17 is a letter dated September 19th, 2025, from Diane Scott, Massachusetts State Lottery Commission, regarding a Keno license for Dean Park.